Hi, Steve Richardson here with Solo to Solo, bringing you ideas and solutions for a better, more profitable, and more efficient law practice. Now, if you have a website, you know how frustrating it can be trying to feed the beast, trying to keep it going with more and more content, and trying to come up with ideas for content. Because, as you know, content is king, and you need to constantly be adding content to your website so that Google will treat you well in the search results. But one of the most frustrating things about this is staring at that empty screen, trying to figure out, what am I going to write about? Well, if you're fairly early on in the process, you can do what I call the brain dump. I think the most effective type of content is the FAQ, the frequently asked question. And that's because people tend to type their question into Google. So if you think of your content in terms of answering a frequently asked question, you're more likely to be found. But what are the kinds of questions that you're asked? Well, what I would do is sit down at your desk, pull out a yellow pad, and start writing. Start writing all the questions that you get asked every day, day in and day out. You know what it's like. You meet with clients, they ask you questions. No matter what area of practice you have, there'll be some commonalities, some common questions that they ask. Start writing them down. Just brainstorm it. Write them down. Then, when you don't think you can do any more, set the list aside. Okay? Don't look at it for another day or so. Let that percolate in your mind, in your brain. Because now, by doing the exercise initially, you sort of trained your brain to start thinking about these questions, and you'll find them popping up into your head. So sit down again a day or so later and continue to write out those questions that you thought of. And when you're done with that, if you have any staff, you have a secretary or paralegal or someone that does your intake, sit down with them and brainstorm with them. Go over the list with them and see what questions they can think of. And you should be able to fill at least one page with frequently asked questions. And now you have your topics. You have things you can write about. You have a list of FAQs. And that's a great start. But there's another way to get even more content out of that with what I call the Uber article. The articles are just that. They're not answering a specific question. They're an article, some people call it a blog post, that talks about a particular point of law. But you have these questions, right? You have these frequently asked questions. Well, what if you see a commonality in them and you write an article that says the top 3, top 5, top 7 questions people ask about bankruptcy, car accidents, drunk driving, whatever your practice area is. And you write this Uber article. And the great thing about that is it's an overall summary. It allows the website visitor, your potential client, to look a little bit more at the bigger picture. That there may be one question that they asked and got the answer to, but there may be other questions as well. So you're giving them a top 3, 5, 7 list. And it's always good to use an odd number. They tend to work out better. And what you can do is give just an introduction and then a brief description of each, and then links to the FAQ article for each question. So you list your top 5. And then for each question, you give a link to the FAQ article on your website so that they can read it in more detail. So you pulled them in, you've got them to your site, and by getting them to click on that link to that FAQ, they're no longer a bounce, and it'll reduce the bounce rate on your website. That's the number of people that come in, look at your page, and then bounce off. They don't stay on your page. So a low bounce rate is another metric that Google likes to see. So by having these Uber articles that talk about the top 3, 5, 7 questions, you're keeping them on your site longer, you're educating them, you're building your authority as an expert in this practice area, and it'll be much easier to convert that visitor the longer they've stayed on your site. So I hope that has given you some ideas on what to do if you're sitting there with writer's block and not able to think of what to write for your website. Consider doing that, the brain dump in the Uber article. You'll find that that'll open the floodgates a bit and get you writing a lot of content for your website. And if you're looking for other ideas or thoughts or tips on how to get a better solo practice that's more profitable and more efficient, that makes you more money without working as much, reducing your hours in the office, come on back to the website at stephenjrichardson.com. Come back here to the Solo to Solo video channel. I publish lots of videos with lots of tips for you. And if you need some help with your electronic digital marketing, with your website, in writing content, in designing campaigns, reach out to me through stephenjrichardson.com, shoot me an email, and we'll set up an appointment to talk to see if I can help you get a better, more profitable, and more efficient solo practice.